So it's been about a week since the release of Mechanical Head Studios' new indie highlight, Cyber Shadow. It's one of those lucky indie titles that actually gets recognized by major news outlets for reviews. This of course is in part due to its involvement with Shovel Knight creators Yacht Club Games as a publisher. The other half, though, is likely in relation to its obvious Ninja Gaiden inspiration, something that reminds players of The Messenger as well. So to have your game be called the child of Shovel Knight and The Messenger sounds great for sales, but I don't want to be unfair to Cyber Shadow here. In actuality, the experience feels greatly different from these two games, despite the surface level visual connection, and I'd say a more accurate comparison would be late 2020's Ghostrunner. Playing these two games simultaneously over the past little while got me thinking about how they make the player feel cool. How they make the player feel like a ninja. Cyber Shadow and Ghostrunner tackle this problem in slightly different ways, but it really all comes down to their structure, specifically in the first half. So long intros aside, in this video I'm going to be exploring the early structure of Ghostrunner and Cyber Shadow to see how they make the player feel cool. Let's get into it. Now both games really expand to have a wide variety of moves, but it all starts with a humble early set of abilities. In Cyber Shadow's first level, all you can do is run, jump, and slash forward with your sword. The level is obviously made with this limited moveset in mind, but in this stage of the game, the player doesn't really feel like a ninja yet. Granted, this limited power does make sense within the story, as you have to regain strength to fight a greater foe by the end. But to be honest, that's a trope that's seen in like 90% of video games anyway. You know what game basically has that same story? Ghostrunner. Again, you start off weak without really knowing who you are, so you have a helper guide you. Ghostrunner also starts you off with a run, jump, and slash, but you also get a crouch slide, and more importantly, a dash. This means that right away you can get into the wall running, enemy slicing speed of a ninja, and in the first minutes of Ghostrunner, I feel like a ninja. Now this isn't to say Cyber Shadow is a worse game at all, rather I'm simply pointing out the structural differences of these two experiences. Cyber Shadow tends to pull its punches a lot more than Ghostrunner. For example, you do eventually get a dash in Cyber Shadow, but it's only in the back half of the game. However, this design of slowly introducing new abilities does have its advantages. See, for the most part, Cyber Shadow introduces you to a new ability after each level. This means that you get to spend a whole level learning and mastering an ability before moving on to the next one. This system is good for a few reasons. One is that it ensures each ability is explored for a fair amount of time. There aren't any abilities that don't get a time to shine. Another great thing about it is that the game stays interesting. With new abilities coming every so often, the player always has something new to master. To make a weird comparison, it's kind of similar to Mario's design of having each level explore a new mechanic before moving on to the next idea. The game stays fresh, and the difficulty curve is consistent. Well, kind of. See, in practice, Cyber Shadow isn't exactly neatly spread like this. The game really loads the less interesting power-ups in the front half of the game and saves the more useful and exciting power-ups for the back half. The first few moves you get are a shuriken and this upward slash. Both aren't bad power-ups, but they rely too heavily on SP to be commonly useful. They never felt as good to use as a simple slash. In fact, there was one boss I was having trouble with because I simply forgot I had other moves at my disposal. They were never really applicable on the normal levels, so when I got to a boss who was weak to the up slash, I completely forgot to use it. Side note here, this says nothing about the quality of the boss fights. In fact, they were some of my favorite parts of the game. It just feels weird that it took so long for the game to start introducing the more interesting power-ups, like the double jump or the fast sprint. I do feel bad talking about Cyber Shadow in such a negative way, but the turnaround will come soon, so please be patient. In the meantime, let's take a look at Ghostrunner's mechanic structure. The game in many ways does the opposite of what Cyber Shadow does. The first level has you using grappling hooks to get on top of enemies and ledges, combined with your dash that momentarily freezes time so you can get past enemy bullets. The grappling and dashing are successful in making you feel like a ninja early on because of the momentum they provide. When the average player pictures themselves as a ninja, speed is a big factor. Running through enemies with your limited melee abilities makes you feel powerful. It says you don't need guns to take them down. The momentum provided feels great, especially in the game's open-ended combat sections. Each encounter is like a mini puzzle to solve, where you need to figure out the best way to take down all the enemies without being hit. Having the freedom to make the best decision for yourself synergizes with the momentum to make you feel smart, fast, and fluid. Now I have to address the elephant in the room. Ghostrunner is a 3D game, whereas Cyber Shadow is a 2D one. Obviously, it's easier to make more open experiences in 3D, but that doesn't mean it's impossible to do in 2D. Here's the part where I actually do make comparisons to the Messenger. The first ability you were given is the so-called Cloud Step, which lets you jump an extra time after slashing a lantern, and eventually enemies too. This idea is genius, as it provides an easy to learn but hard to master mechanic that allows you to speed through stages, as well as giving the player a chance to recover. Like Ghostrunner's dash, this ability really makes you feel like you have the jump on your enemies, like you have a secret technique that they could never learn. What's great about the Messenger's power-ups is that they all build around the Cloud Step. Your glide lets you do a downward slash to get a higher jump off the lanterns, and your rope dart sends you flying through lanterns for extra speed. Compare this to Cyber Shadow, where most of the power-ups feel very separate. Yes, they build on top of each other, but aside from a few exceptions, they aren't combined in interesting ways. Of course, the levels are designed completely differently in these two games. The Messenger has more open areas with fewer enemies, whereas Cyber Shadow is full of cramped hallways filled with enemies. It's more about combat, which I can respect. There's some satisfaction in barely scraping by to the next checkpoint. So all this makes it out to sound like I significantly prefer Ghostrunner over Cyber Shadow, but that simply isn't the case. That's because there is in fact an upside to the way Cyber Shadow is structured. By saving your interesting abilities and ideas for the latter half, it makes for a game that gets better and better as it goes out. There really is a turning point once you get the dash and double jump, where the game just keeps growing with ideas. I don't want to spoil anything, but by the end of Cyber Shadow, I was very content with my experience. See, I'm someone who plays a lot of games. Because of this, I don't always have time to finish games, either because I lose interest or I just don't have time. With Cyber Shadow, I kept playing because it kept recapturing my interest again and again. Yes, the first half is pretty weak to me, but Cyber Shadow is proof that pulling your punches can be effective in making a complete and interesting experience. You know what game doesn't pull punches? Ghostrunner. See, Ghostrunner had me completely hooked through the first half of the experience because it let you be powerful right from the start. However, getting through the second half became less and less enjoyable because the power-ups were so uninteresting. All of them felt like get out of the jail free cards, and I didn't use them that often. None of them provided any meaningful changes to the gameplay, so the game, despite having new mechanics and areas, started to lose me. Now, I'm not going to say that either game is bad. In fact, I would say that both games are pretty great, but I can't call them perfect because neither gets the balance of structure and upgrades exactly right. I don't know, maybe it's all just heavily opinionated nonsense, but I hope it has some value. Okay, this is the part of the video where I go off script and just ask you to leave a comment. I want to hear from you guys in the comments talking about just what do you think of the video. I probably will respond because I have like 300 subscribers, so there's not a lot of you to respond to. Yeah, but like seriously, let's talk about it. I haven't uploaded in a while, just I've been busy with school, but I have a lot of time now. I've got a couple of videos set out for the next week, so I posted that on my Discord in the announcements section. You can check that out with the link in the description for my other social media too. Yeah, I'll see you guys watching the next video. See ya.